Welcome to Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. What if you could learn from experienced real estate investors, find out what got them to where they are now, get insight into their daily habits, and take these insights to inspire your own growth? Each week, Jonathan Green shares an in-depth look at the mindful approach to real estate investing. Jonathan is a real estate investor, advisor, and coach, as well as the founder of Streamlined Properties and the team leader of Streamlined Properties on Market, brokered by eXp Realty. Whether you are looking to start from scratch, get to the next level, or just a straightforward and honest approach to real estate investing, Jonathan seeks to provide a free mentorship program you can take with you anywhere. Now, here's Jonathan.
Welcome back to another week of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. Thanks for stopping by. Again, it's Monday and Thursday now for our releases. Thanks to you. Now we're twice a week. If you love the podcast, please do us a favor, write us a 5-star review, follow it, subscribe to it, share it with your friends wherever you listen to podcasts. This week we have a great guest, Dr. Adam Gower of GowerCrowd. He's going to talk to you all about crowdsourcing for real estate syndications. Let's go. This is episode 62 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with my guest, Dr. Adam Gower, the founder of GowerCrowd.com. He's a 30-plus year real estate veteran, hey, just like me, but Dr. Gower, over $1.5 billion of commercial real estate investment and finance experience. Now he builds digital marketing systems for real estate professionals who want to raise equity capital online, aka crowdfunding. Adam, great to have you on the show.
Well, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me, Jonathan.
Yeah, pleasure. I always like to start here. When you were younger, did you have an interest in real estate?
I've always been younger.
Yeah, for us both.
Yeah, I think I did. You know, my family growing up did a lot of development across Europe. So I kind of saw that, and I saw the benefits of that just as a kid. Yeah. But my entree into real estate was actually pulling wires for an electrician in Southern California. And I then started to raise capital. So one thing led to another. I started to raise capital for ground-up multifamily sponsors, and I've always been interested. There have been a couple of diversions during my career, but for the most part, it's been strictly commercial real estate development and finance.
Yeah. Well, let's start with the raising capital part. What was it that in the beginning that made you know like that you could raise capital? Because it's always hard. Just the fact of asking for money is a difficult thing. What confidence did you have going in? And then how did you develop it where you could be okay asking other people for their money?
So that's actually a really interesting question. You know, I had the first time I started actively raising capital for real estate, I was put into, and actually I don't remember the exact first time, but I do remember the first few times. And I was put into a room with a number of Japanese investors. Now, at that time, I spoke no Japanese. I speak Japanese now, but in those days, I didn't speak any Japanese. And most of them, for the most part, they didn't speak English. So we had interpreters. And my job, and this was, I first learned about real estate from the general partner, who was an old friend and used to show me over breakfast pro formas. He would tell me what he was doing. I'd look at his pro formas and I just thought, oh my goodness, this is magical. I've never seen anything like this. This is an incredible way to make a lot of money. And so my job was to present these numbers. I'm not even sure why they had me do it. I must have been, how old was I? 22, 23? I mean, really young. And I was put in front of these ultra high net worth Japanese investors with an interpreter. And in those days, I don't even have slides. Honestly, I mean, it was like wacky stuff, right? So you press a button, the carousel would go round and another slide would drop in and I'd go through this presentation. And I remember what I realized, the reason I realized that I was very good at it, one, because the general partner had me doing it all the time, presenting these deals to investors around boardroom tables.
Yeah.
But also, even though there was a language barrier and the interpreters were asking questions in English that had been asked in Japanese, I understood exactly what it was that they were asking, right? There was what underpinned the question. What were they really asking when they asked these questions? And I also remember other people trying to answer and realizing, no, that's not the question. In English, that's what it looks like, right? If you look at it literally. But I know that what they're really getting at is something else. So let me answer the question for you. And I always found that I was answering the real question. So I understood what was really driving the motivation of investors, what was behind it, and was really effective at communicating and answering the questions that they had.
Yeah, that's interesting because you're kind of a step ahead of the competition then, because you're thinking differently outside the box. Like you said, not straight one-to-one what somebody's asking, because there's a lot of layers to why somebody's going to do something below that.
Yes, exactly. That is right. I mean, it's interesting that you probe this, Jonathan. Nobody really gets into this mechanism, but there is more. When somebody asks a question, understanding who they are and what's motivating that question is very important in being able to provide an answer that is exactly what they're asking for, right? That helps solve the problem that they're inquiring about. And I'm not sure, I've never really thought about this. It's quite fascinating that you ask, but I'm not sure if it's really something that can be taught. It was just an ability that I had to just understand what people were asking and what was really driving the question.
Yeah. I mean, I liken this part of what you said to what I call the 7 levels of why. Like if somebody says, well, I want to make money, that's not good enough. It's like, why do you want to make money? And then their next answer is, well, because I want to support my family. Why do you want to support your family? Oh, because I wasn't supported as well when I was growing up. There you're getting all the way down to the real thing. So even in an investing context, there's something there. Maybe they want to protect something, so they want a safer investment, or they have extra money to burn. They want something riskier. So in capital management, you have to know that so you can manage your client better. That makes sense to you, right? Obviously, with all you've learned now, especially with crowdsourcing as well.
Yeah, I think that also I would say, again, just having never thought about this or been asked about this before. So this is absolutely novel. You're causing me I'm delighted to do it, to think in a way I haven't thought before. But I also think that it's important to remain conscious of the sequence of questions that somebody has asked. Because they may ask a question deep into a conversation, right, about a deal that is revealing of their thought process, right? That might not, if you take it out of context, you'll answer the question wrongly. But if you understand the direction that they're going in without asking what's motivating, why are you asking this question, right? You don't need to necessarily always ask that. And sometimes you do have to have that rapport and that back and forth just to clarify where they're coming from and what is their perspective and what's triggering that question. But if you're attentive and you understand where somebody's coming from the sequence of questions, from their nonverbal communication with you, and from the way that they're interacting with what you're showing them, you can be very precise in the way you communicate.
Yeah, I really like what you're saying. I actually want to quickly try to tie it to something else, because these type of dialogues, by understanding what somebody's saying or thinking ahead, it can be directly tied to acquisitions. You know, we're talking about capital and capital management, getting people to invest. But in terms of acquisitions, you've dealt in your career with a lot of distressed commercial assets. And part of understanding the distress is not just the money part. It's what's behind why the property is distressed, which then gives you leverage as a buyer, because you're figuring out what their, like you said before, what their real problem is. So is this way of thinking something that's helped you in the distressed asset game as well?
You know, distressed assets are phenomenally difficult to deal with, actually. So my exposure to distress, apart from the fact that this sponsor that I worked for in the 80s when the savings and loan crisis hit. And so I lost everything and the whole thing kind of evaporated. So that was a different experience. I suppose the biggest lesson then was this time is different, right? I say that, right. I mean, it really is. It's going to be different than the last time. And it's not going to be what you expect. So expect the unexpected and be ready to roll with it.
Yeah.
But my experience of distress from a kind of non-personal perspective, at that time, I lost all my money. It was a whole different thing. Was during the global financial crisis, so 2007 and beyond, for a few years. And that was when I was in a major bank working on their portfolio of real estate collateralized loans across all asset classes and hundreds of sponsors and across a large geographical area, and then ultimately at Colony Capital. And so when I was at the bank, I wasn't buying, I was selling loans, right?
Yeah,
so the bank wanted to divest of non-performing loans. So there was no acquisition function. I was dealing with people who were buying these loans. So, and it was very different because we were quarterly based. And so we were deadline driven. FOMO, fear of missing out, was the primary driver to our success. Like if you don't if you don't wire the down payment and fax documents by Friday and before anybody else does, you're not getting it. It was relatively easy. It was hardcore, but it was relatively easy from the sell side to do that. When I was at Colony, also, they bought $7 billion of notes. So I wasn't on the acquisition side of that. Okay. I was also working on divestments. So buying notes is a very tough, or notes or buying distressed real estate is very tough because you've always got somebody on the sell side who is fighting for survival. And so it's very different from, an investor who's looking to make money. That's a positive, right, kind of relationship. You're encouraging them, you're educating them, an investor, right, to invest with you. When you're trying to buy something from somebody who is looking down the barrel of insolvency, conversations are very, very different and very challenging.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's why that is a specific expertise in all type of things where that transaction is going that way. Somebody's in trouble. They have to get rid of an asset. Somebody wants to acquire it, but the prices take a while to meet based on what somebody owes or what the problems are with the property. So there's a lot of things that could go into that part.
Yeah. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. Sorry, Jonathan, but just thinking about this, acquisitions is a very high skill. To be a good acquisitions guy or gal requires a deep level of experience, knowledge, and a certain type of personality. Somebody who is persistent and who perseveres, who is willing to establish a relationship, to follow up repeatedly with somebody. It's tough, and you've got to also be, this is actually what my wife says is my superpower. She says, my superpower is that I am able to hear the word no 100 times before I get a yes and just keep on going. All right.
Yeah.
And acquisitions, that's a skill that act guys have to have. You've just got to realize that those diamonds are very rare. They're hard to find. And you've got to be mining all the time consistently in order to find them. And most of the time, you're not going to find what you're looking for.
Yeah, I think based on that, to me in acquisitions and in all of that, no to me is always not now. And if you're in that position and you think of no as not now, then it's just like, okay, well, maybe later, instead of just saying no, okay, well, I guess this is over. You're never going to sell anything like that.
Well, that's super important. I mean, look, so my expertise is in capital raising, and we run campaigns. So we build digital marketing systems for sponsors. But once we've built those, we then start to do paid advertising. And by the way, don't do paid advertising until you've got a good platform, because you'll piss money away. Excuse my language.
Yeah.
Might have to beat that
Yeah.
out. I'm not sure what's allowed on podcasts. So you want to have a good platform. First, that's what we build, and then we move to paid advertising. And what I'll tell you is, if you're doing paid advertising, for example, on Facebook, 98% of the leads that you will get will say no first.
Yeah.
Think about that, right? So only 2%, only 2 people, if you're lucky, out of 100 within the first 90 days will actually invest with you. That means that your investor relations people have to hear no 98 times before they get a yes, or 50 to 49 times before they get a yes.
Yeah.
And then they're going to get the yes. That is a lot of rejection, but all of those people that come into your funnel, right, who come into your ecosystem by giving you their name and email address, that don't say yes immediately, they came to you for a reason. And it might be that today isn't exactly the right time, but if you nurture them over time, this is the beauty of digital marketing. You don't have to pick up the phone all the time. In fact, I don't like picking up the phone.
Yeah,
some of
me
our
neither.
IR people, investor relations guys don't like to do that either. Some love it, right? That's all they want to do. Small clients, they only want to talk on the phone. I just think it's so inefficient, but some of that's what they really like to do. But with digital marketing, you can nurture 198 people that said no over a period of time, and you can do it all at the same time by sending out a high value video or an email or a newsletter, something that isn't always saying, here, please invest with me, but here's some information that's going to help you in your journey for real estate investing. I'm going to share that with you. That's how you nurture them. You can do it all at once, right? All those people at once. And that's really the power of digital marketing.
Yeah, I think there's also, metrics wise, you're able to see who's closer to raising their hand based on, how many things they've touched, how many they've opened. And that's the importance of digital marketing. Everybody doesn't have to do a reply to an email to be interested. They may be passively looking for 6 months, and then they're going to make the call. That's why you can't stop. Once you start the campaign and people are in it, you can't stop because you don't know how many people are just looking and not clicking anything. That's important in that cycle.
Well, the other thing, Jonathan, that's interesting is when I kind of developed these automated email systems when I was at the bank. Now, this is 15 years ago. How long ago was that? It's like a lifetime ago already. And there was no such thing, I don't think, as automated email systems in those days. So I kind of built my own steam-powered ones because I was dealing with so many people. So I would send out thousands and thousands of emails in blasts. I can't believe I got away with it. And I think the whole system was different. I think it was, I just got away with it in terms of spam or whatever. I think the systems were all distant. The way it worked in those days was different. God, I sound really old, don't I? It's only 15 years ago. But what I do remember is that almost never did the same buyer emerge for each deal. What I mean by that is that what I learned was timing when you send out an email to your network is absolutely critical. If somebody is there looking at their emails, right? I'm looking at my phone as I do this. I need a prop, right? But if somebody is there and the email comes in at the right moment, you're going to catch them at that right moment. If you only send out one email, you got to get lucky. You got to have a lot of, you push it out to a lot of people to catch those people at the right time. So the secret to success in marketing online, whether you're raising capital, doing acquisitions, or whatever it is consistency. You've got to be there regularly in a predictable way because you never know when the right moment will strike, particularly with an investor. And if you let me just run on briefly, I'll give you a very tangible example of that. One of our clients came to us, actually our first client, came to us with a huge database of names, 30, 40,000 people in their database. And I wanted to purge the list of what are called cold contacts, people who have not interacted with an email over a certain period of time, typically 3 months, right? Because these days, there's various reasons that you need to do that, right? If you don't want to be labeled a spammer, you want to be emailing to warm, not cold contacts. So I made the case to the guy who's running IR over. I said, look, you've got this 30, 40,000 person list. we need to clean it out, get all the cold ones. And he was absolutely resistant to doing that. And I asked him why. He said, you know why? He said, because I've been emailing to this list for years. And what happens, he says, is that I'll send out an email for a new deal, and somebody who's been on the list for 4 years, who has never interacted, I've never heard from them for 4 years. I met them at a conference, South Africa. Suddenly they pop up and they invest $500,000. He said, there's no way I want to purge this list. So we created a different process for them that allowed him to continue communicating. It was an effective way, didn't end up being a spammer, but also made sure that this list remained active. And that's because you never know when somebody's going to act.
Yeah, I mean, especially with investors, they have other things, big jobs. You don't know when they're going to get a giant bonus and then they'll be ready to deploy, or they sell something, they want a 1031 into something else. You can't be inside their head like that. So that's a great point in terms of list making. Like, you can separate the, I guess, amount of emails or the content of emails for different people, but consistency, I agree, is the key, especially with what you're doing. If you're trying to crowdsource for syndications or for bigger deals, that consistency needs to be there for the reasons that we just said. You don't know when someone's going to raise their hand, but you have to be there when they do.
Exactly, yeah. And I will tell you, I'll give you a couple of really kind of pro tips, all right, for email communication. Number one, you want to be communicating at least once a month. That's kind of a bare minimum. So if you've not got a newsletter and all you're doing is sending out, please invest with me when you've got a deal, scrub that. All right. You want to be sending out high value, intelligent communications at least once a month, even if it's just commentary on capital markets, what's going on in the industry, how you're dealing with deals, deal updates, doesn't matter what. Make sure it's educational, of high value, and it has to be at least once a month. And the second trick, also pro tip, is the way to keep your email list healthy is email. Ideally, you want to be emailing once a week or once every 2 weeks, but email all your warm list every time and your cold list once every 4 emails. That's the trick. We kind of figured that out by accident. We have open rates above 70%, which is insanely high. And that's because we employ those tactics.
Yeah, I mean, I think that segmenting lists for anybody who's an investor who wants to grow a platform, do syndications, have a big wholesale business, you have to figure out who's closer, who's interacted with deals, like you said, because you can separate different, what I call micro markets for them based on their input. Yeah, you could get lucky with some, but you want to hedge your bets towards the one that are more active because they're most likely to invest. You will get some home runs on the others, but you definitely, like I agree, you're more likely to get an unsubscribe by sending something over and over to someone who's not paying as much attention.
Yeah, but unsubscribes are fine. It's better. Let them self-purge from your list. You don't want to be blasting people that don't want to know. They're never going to invest anyway. It's better that they do that than hit spam, right? Or complain. This is junk. You don't want them to do that. So it's really important that it's okay. So unsubscribes are fine.
Yeah, let's talk about GowerCrowd. So that is your platform where you're helping people crowdsource generally for syndications or for larger deals?
Yeah, typically. That's right. Yeah, syndications. Crowdfunding is syndication. I mean, it's the term is actually synonymous, really. I mean, if you look at the legal definitions, no. But in common usage, they're synonymous.
Yeah, I mean, generally, you're looking to widen the net so you have more opportunities for investors and then vet them from the inside, right?
Well, not quite. Let me kind of say that slightly different. So what you're doing when you're crowdsourcing is you are elevating your visibility so that active investors, accredited investors, typically we focus on accredited investors, but so that passive investors discover you online and come to the 3 pillars are know, like, and trust you by learning from information that you got on your website and communication that you have and your newsletter. So that's really what you're doing is drawing people to you before you even pitch them and predisposing them to invest with you before you even pitch them. That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're putting yourself out
Yeah.
there in front of yourself, right? In front of your deals before you even put the deals in front of them.
Yeah, that goes back to something you said before that's so important. You have to have your hub site or your main marketing piece already set up, because if you're really good at generating contacts from an email and they come back to a source that doesn't look vetted, then you've just ruined your good email, right?
Well, that's exactly right. Yeah, you got to have a good lead generating, informative website that people can learn about who you are and everything about you. You really want everything there on the website.
Yeah, I mean, I know we're talking generally now about what you do is for syndications, but I can see wholesalers needing this advice a lot because they're bringing a lot of investors into a funnel who want to buy from them, but often their back end is nothing just because they're just running so quickly to get off market deals. This is definitely advice that can help a wide range of real estate investors who are just trying to build out their portal, like you said, to attract more eyes on them and build know, like, trust just by being in, and social media can obviously help with that too.
Well, look, there's nothing new about this. It's new to commercial real estate, but these tactics, what I'm describing, these are tactics that have been employed in marketing for well over 100 years, right? It used to be that you would send out direct mail, for heaven's sake. I mean, I can tell you're no spring chicken like me.
Yeah, I'm not.
So you probably remember, I don't know how far back you go, but you probably remember getting flyers in the mail, selling you books, book clubs and whatever it was. But you didn't just get one letter that said, join the book club for 1 cent, get 5 books, and then whatever, right? However they did it, right? You do remember this stuff. But you got multiple ones. You got them all the time. They didn't send one. They did it all the time. And one day you picked it up and you thought, oh, I like that book. All right, 1 cent, I'll have a go with that, and you sent it in. That's how they got you. Consistency.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, this is Jonathan. Thanks for listening to another episode of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. On this brief interlude, I wanted to tell you that we have a mailing list. I actually don't love mailing lists. There's so much. This is not an automated mailing list where you get on a drip campaign. These are written once a month, will eventually be at once a week again by me, direct, and they're not spammy. So if you want to sign up for our mailing list, you can go to bit.ly/streamlined with a D mail. Bit.ly is bit.ly/streamlined mail. See you there. So what advice would you give to a syndicator? They're just getting started. They've got a fund that they want to get funded. Where should they start in terms of getting themselves ready to build something out that will create opportunities for them?
Okay, Jonathan, do you mind if I mention one of my books in answer to that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right, thank you. So we build digital marketing systems for some of the top sponsors in the country, right? And we've been tracking the industry for 10 years. We know what works. And there is a formula, a structure that your website should have that will optimize your capital raising efforts. To optimize anything you want to do in commercial real estate, primarily how to raise money. And I've written a book. It's called Syndicate. It's actually on my website at GowerCrowd.com. It's one of the 3 books at the bottom of the homepage. And it's a $7 book. If you don't like it, just let me know. I'll give you $7 back. Don't worry.
Yeah.
But it really has the formula for how to structure your website, what you need on your website, what kind of buttons you need, how your menus should look, and what kind of content you need on your website. It is the gold standard for capital formation in commercial real estate. Yeah. You can read it in less than an hour. It's short, but very detailed.
Yeah, I think it's important for everybody to know that this is the modern way. I mean, you're using principles that started somewhere else, but creating that online portal where someone can get all the information they want is what needs to be there, because it allows people to interact on their own time. We're not cold calling people. You don't have to do it. You have to get them to your site, and then your site has to do the work for you. That's what you're training people to do, so that it helps them in advance. And then again, they have more time to focus on other things because they don't have to make those phone calls like we used to do, or door to door, try to figure that out.
That's exactly right. Basically, 1,000x is your time, right? Or more, right? Instead of having to do this one person at a time, you can do it in front of everyone, all the time, everywhere. If you think about, we interact with this kind of marketing all the time. You go on LinkedIn, there are names that you see more frequently, or, on television, the ads that you see, or whatever, anywhere online. You become familiar with brands and with ideas because they are repeatedly put in front of you. All right. That's how we consume information these days, how we learn about the world around us. To win in this society, you have to play the same game. And it's not that difficult to do. And the nice thing, Jonathan, about it is you only need to build it once. Once you built it, it's there, right? It works for you.
Yeah.
It's all on, it's on autopilot. It's like putting, what do you call it? Like fuel supplements in your gas tank, that increases the octane level or whatever. It's all it does. It just helps you work more efficiently.
Yeah, it makes sense. You're driving the trust site, and then your job after that is to get people to go there. But if you think about it the different way, it used to be like, you can have a whole pitch, you can have a pitch deck, you can have YouTube videos of everything that you do just sitting there, like we were saying before, for people to interact on their own time. Whereas before, you would have to make all those pitches in person. That's why you're saying it's 1,000x savings of your time. You could record one video explaining the entire thing that everybody asks the same question every time, then just put the video on, and there it is. And someone can develop know, like, trust from that. And then, of course, if it accurately represents you in real life, when you meet them, you're like, oh, you're just like the video. That's why I think social media is so important for this now as well. It's all part of a growth cycle.
Yeah, what happens is that when you have that first contact with a prospect, the conversation is materially different if you have an online presence. If you don't have an online presence, the first question is going to be, all right, who are you? What do you do? How long have you been doing it? Why do you do it? Why should I? Right? It's like this whole dog and pony show. But if you've got it all up on your website, the first question, I know this because we actually run IR for some of our clients. Well, one of our clients actually, but we also work with IR pros across all of our clients, right? So that's what we do, is we supplement and support them. Well, the first contact questions when you've got a good digital online presence are things like, can I invest using my IRA? Or I can't navigate the investment portal. Can you help me, guide me through it? In other words, they're investing. They're actively investing. They're not asking you all the background because they've already done that. They're done with that. It's okay. I'm ready. Just tell me how to make the investment. Right? They're predisposed. It's materially different. It's an amazing experience.
Yeah, I think it goes back to something we were talking about before. It's kind of predicting the next steps or understanding. Your email cadence for acquisitions or for setting stuff up is similar to what we're saying. You're trying to anticipate people going from step to step and having the information available in terms of like, here's how the syndication works. Then you're going to click a button. Oh, this is the next question is going to be answered, because now you have a history of knowing what people are going to ask next. For the consumer or someone who wants the investor, when that happens for you, you're like, oh, you're building trust every time you get a new answer without having to pick up a phone and call someone, because you're probably at home 11 o'clock doing your research on your own. That's why it's so important now.
Jonathan, you absolutely nailed it. And what also happens is that people who are interested, who discover you somehow and are favorably disposed to learning more, those folk, your ideal investors. They will consume everything you've got online. They'll read all of your articles. They'll watch all of your videos. They'll read all of your emails. And when you ask them to invest, they'll invest. And it's also important to keep in mind that we are talking about statistics, because we're talking about massive numbers of people, right? Where instead of one-on-one, when you put out a good online presence, you're talking to millions of people, potentially all at the same time. So statistically, those people that love you is going to be a small subset of everybody. And for everyone that loves you, there's also somebody who thinks you are a total loser. Don't worry about those people.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
they're going to exist. They're going to, they're going to troll you online or whatever. You'll get FU emails occasionally. Don't worry about that, because for every one of those, on the other side, there's somebody who just cannot wait to send you a check. And it's those people that will change your life, and those are the people you concentrate on.
Yeah, and I think those are also the people who become reinvestors. We're talking about investing in syndications, and once they have an initial good experience, and then it's backed up with real life experience and obviously a profitable gain as expected on the syndication, it's much easier for them to come back for more. And then you're able to build it bigger. And then you also have feedback available to bring back that will help other people know, like, this is real.
Yeah, Jonathan, that's a very important point, because what you're talking about is lifetime value of an investor. So to get an investor through the door the first time, right, from being unknown, you being unknown to them, to you being known, like, and trusted by them, to them actually investing, is a heavy lift. Even in the digital world, it's a heavy lift. It's a lot of work and it's expensive. But if you treat them right, once they invest the first time, they'll invest again and again and again. And that initial cost as a proportion of their total investment will pale into insignificance.
Yeah, that's right. And that's just them. I mean, that's just them. But if they like it that much to invest multiple times, they're likely to bring their friends. And I think that's important for syndicators to know, because then you're getting ultra vetted people coming into the funnel. Like we were saying, you put something out, you're trying to find accredited investors, but a lot of stuff that comes through is going to be fake, on that digital marketing. But then as you start to develop the completed projects and then those people are happy, they're going to bring people to the table without you having to do anything. But it's still that initial spend and setup that helped you get there. And that's where people forget. It's what happened up front by building the system the right way so that people can come in and keep coming in and have the same experience.
It's interesting that you say that and you frame it that way, because I think of it also like a multifamily apartment building, ground up, right? When you've got a piece of land with nothing on it, there's no income. You have to spend time building the building, right? You got to invest in the building. And once you've got the building up, then you can invite people to come in. And when they come in, they start writing you checks in rent, right? They start writing you rent checks. It's the same process. You got to build the building, the machine that attracts people in. You've got to make that investment. But once it's there, it just keeps on giving. It doesn't go away. You have to maintain it like you got to maintain a building. And you can increase your rents with a bit of effort as well. But in general, and some upgrades. But the principle is the same, right? You got to build it first. But once you build it, it's the gift that keeps on giving.
Right. You build it the right way. I love this analogy because it also applies to your upkeep, like you were saying. And that to me goes to the email portion. Like as a syndicator, when you have people in a deal, your monthly or weekly email has to be effective to the project that you're working on. People want an update without having to ask more. When you get an update and it's one sentence, that doesn't really help you for your investment. But again, that continued update, just like the apartment building, if you buy, 100-unit apartment building, you build it, like you said, and then you just never do maintenance on it. No one's bringing their friends to get there. But if you're always doing on the maintenance there, your rents are going to keep going up. You're going to have a waiting list instead of people running for the hills. It's the same thing with email marketing. I love that analogy because I really think it applies to both. You build the structure which helps you, but you still have to maintain it along the way and make sure you're not overdoing things. If people are saying, hey, that's a little bit too much, then you got to pump the brakes a little.
Yeah, and I don't want to give the wrong impression. In fact, you're helping me not do that. There's no silver bullet to success. It all requires work. And building a solid capital formation website and system, social media and automated emails and everything, it takes work, and it takes work to maintain it and keep it growing and becoming more and more effective. But the difference is that the work that you put in when you build a system like this and you've got one in place is significantly more effective. Your time is significantly more effective. You are a lot more productive when you've got something like this than if you are just kind of, doing it one person at a time. That's just inefficient and today unnecessary.
Yeah, there's one other thing I wanted to talk about with that, because we're talking about systems that work. And I think there's a lot of people who, they start with a good hub and then they build a good acquisition system, but they're terrible at response. They don't think that that's important. But if I'm on something and I'm looking at a syndication and I fill out the form, I want to get the information that I want like right away. And I'm sure you have it set up, they're going to get what they want from this. And that's why you build those funnels. But I think some people do fail in that upkeep because they've built it so automated that they forget, like, the high people are definitely going to want to talk to someone. It's not, you'll have a subset who will invest right away. But the whole point of all of the stuff is to get people to get in one-on-one. And then it's just going to take you thousands times less to close the deal because they've done all the back work, right? It's really still pushing to get the one-on-one. It's just going to be much quicker.
Well, to quote one of our clients, the experienced IR head of investor relations at a major multifamily shop, he says, when I meet people for the first time, they are far more advanced in the sales process. That's exactly his term. More advanced in the sales process than I was ever used to before. Yeah, it's a different world. I mean, it's I kind of discovered it by accident, Jonathan. I started a podcast and I started to get leads started coming in. It was a friend of mine here in town that said, well, do you want to make money while you sleep? And do you want to do this? And I just thought, it sounds like, what's that all about? It sounds super hokey, ridiculous. It's like, go away. What's that nonsense? Like, it's hypey. It sounded hypey.
Yeah.
But he was a friend. He was legitimately about that. And I started realizing, oh my goodness, people actually that I don't know are coming to me and they know me. I've never heard from them in my life before, but they're coming to me. They already know everything about me. It's like, and they want to do business with me. And this is incredible. And that's how I transitioned from building it for myself, kind of serendipitously, to building it for sponsors. I thought, oh my goodness, this can be applied to capital formation. Let's just switch it on and see how it works. And it's worked gangbusters over the last few years.
Yeah. And I know we've talked a lot about syndications, but this is really applicable to every level of real estate investing, because even your brand new investor, when you're trying to build a mini company that's going to start wholesaling or flipping, you still have to have that brand presence so people can find information about you, or else you're going to have to do what we were saying, back to the old way.
Well, that's it. And the other thing is that they also want to know, I mean, the first thing, look, everybody is predisposed to trusting you, to investing with. Look, this is how I think of it. If you're a real estate professional, you have got the two things that everybody in the world wants. You can give them passive income and help them build wealth. Who doesn't want that, right? Everybody wants that. And that's what you've got. But the challenge you have is that nobody trusts you. So you've got to cross that trust line. That's what you've got. You've got what they want. They're predisposed to trusting you. You've just got to help them do that by giving them preemptively, answering all the questions that they have about you, because you've got what they want. So, I was online looking for some, shouldn't be too obvious about this, but I was looking for some parental control software. Let's put it that way, for my kid's new phone. I just get my 14-year-old giving him a bloody my old phone. I was running my business on it. It's like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm giving. So I was looking for that thing, and I found all these platforms that you can download apps, and there's things that you can do. You know what? When I dug into them, they were sleazy. Some of these I did not trust them at all. There were no names on there. That was just, this is not good. I found a much cleaner solution for that. But that's the point. That's if your prospects can't research you online, they will find somebody who they can research online, and they will invest with that person and not with you. It's not like it's optional anymore. It's mandatory. If you want to win, you've got to be online, period.
Yeah. And like you were saying before, you're not a phone person. I literally will not talk on the phone. I will only text and Zoom. There's no other options for me. It's just not a good use of my time. But there's so many places, just take regular businesses where they'll have an email form, and I don't want to call someone to set an appointment or to ask to get my dog cleaned or anything. So I just click the form and then I never hear anything. It's like, you're probably losing hundreds of thousands of dollars a year because you're just letting this form go to no one, when that's how the majority of people now want to communicate. If you have something, you're making it easier for people to request services on their own time again.
Isn't it a beautiful thing? You know, this is why I'm in business and why my business is so successful. It's because 99% of sponsors have got absolutely naff all when it comes to digital marketing. I'll sit with people on the phone during my pitch calls, right? When somebody's called and said, hey, we're interested, we want to do it. Let's have a meeting. So I have I'll have a call with them where I want to make sure that what we do is right for them. So we'll pull up their website, and 90% of the time put in my contact info to their contact form or to whatever they've got on their pet, and we'll sit down and wait. And like you said, nothing comes through. It's right. There you go. That's exactly right there. You just proved it, right? This is why you need.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so tell us a little bit more about GowerCrowd.com so we know what you do, where people can reach you, and what the goals are for your company.
Thank you. So GowerCrowd.com, that's my last name and the word crowd, is the best way to reach me. So I have a newsletter, so you just sign up for the newsletter. It's free. It goes out every Wednesday, and it covers real estate, syndication, and crowdfunding. And we are focused at the moment. It's a big risk, actually, Jonathan. I'm taking a big risk. I'm gonna date stamp this. I'm sorry to do it for you because I like evergreen content. Everything we talked about is evergreen, but right now I'm going to date stamp it early July 2023. And the reason I do that is because as the markets change, so do we pivot. So if you're listening in a year from now, things will be completely different probably. But our focus today is discounted distressed real estate, and we are feeling our way through the market. We're starting to get some inquiries from people that have access to discounted deals that they want to finance. We're starting to get inquiries from investors, and we are trying to figure out how to bring them together and make a little bit on the side in the process of doing that. But it's complicated, and I'm not quite sure how. Probably what we'll do is we will do some JV partnerships with sponsors that bring deals that they want to finance. That's kind of where I'm orienting my work at the moment.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you said you have 3 books. Tell us about those before we hop off.
Yes. So on the website, there are, I got to remember, I just changed them up actually. So if you go to GowerCrowd.com and just scan down to the bottom, there are 3 $7 books. I love these $7 books. One's Real Estate Crowdfunding, The Secret World. That's really for investors, passive investors. And that just explains the benefits of investing through crowdfunding, right? Through an online syndication. Yeah. And then there's this new book also for passive investors, The Reality of Distressed Real Estate, which looks at, exactly that. I just go into detail on what distressed real estate is and how to find it and how to invest in it, or discounted deals. And then the main book for developers is Syndicate. And that's the one that I talked about a little bit earlier, which is really your key to best of class website for raising capital.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, it was an absolute pleasure to have you on. Great to meet you. I appreciate it. I think this is it's a different episode because I think they're getting a lot of digital marketing opportunity ideas here built into the syndication space. So I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Jonathan, it's just an enormous pleasure. Thanks so much for having me. I'm really grateful to you for inviting me. Thank you.
All right. That was episode 62 with Dr. Adam Gower of GowerCrowd.com. We'll see you next week. I hope you enjoyed that episode of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with me, Jonathan Green, And I just want to remind you, and this is always an uncomfortable part, I don't want you to think that I'm begging for you to like, subscribe, follow, do whatever you have to do for the podcast, leave a 5-star review. But if you like the podcast and you think it adds value in the real estate investing sphere, then just do me a personal favor. Like the podcast, follow it, share it when you can with your friends, and be so kind as to write a 5-star review if you believe it deserves a 5-star review up against what else is out there. I would really appreciate it, and I hope you keep listening.